I need a new tennis racket badly. If you need more context, check out my wide racket reveal video where I explain my situation in more detail. But today I'm super happy because I get to test the new RF Wilson racket. I'm a big fan of the RF line. I have the RF 97, one of the most beautiful rackets ever designed, but at 340 grams unstrung, this was a racket that was difficult for me to play with. However, the new versions, there are 3 of them, are lighter. This right here is the RF01 Pro, and it's 20 grams lighter. It's 320 grams unstrung. Compared to the old model, this is possibly going to be more comfortable for me to play with. But not only that, the racket head size has increased to 98 square inches. I listened to a Roger Federer interview on the Tennis Channel, and he said that he came a long way. When he first started playing on tour, he was using an 85 square inch racket head. Then he transitioned to 90, then to 97, and now he finds himself at the optimal range. And nowadays, not only do we seldomly see very small racket head sizes such as 90 square inches or even 95 square inches, we also seldomly see oversized tennis rackets, something that was popular in the 90s. The ideal racket head size for the modern game is between 98 and 100 square inches. And it is also true, and Federer confirmed this, that players nowadays play with rackets that are lighter. So this version of the RF racket is for sure a more modern version. Now I'm going to test all 3, and I'm going to tell you a few things that are the same on all 3 models, and that is the string pattern. It's a 16 by 19 string pattern, and the racket head size is a 98 on all models. And also the design of the racket is the same on all 3. However, there are differences in weight and balance. So the RF Pro is 320 grams and 9 points head light. The regular RF model is 300 grams and also 9 points head light. And the future version is 280 grams unstrung and 7 points head light. So the light racket is a little bit more head heavy compared to the other 2. So the first RF racket I'm going to be testing is the future model. That's the 280 gram version. And a lot of you guys always ask me, Nick, are you talking about strung or unstrung weight? I made an entire video explaining why I always refer to the weight of a racket as unstrung. First of all, it's stamped on the racket. That's the unstrung weight, 280 grams. And there's a reason for it. If you go on the Wilson website and you take this specific racket, among all 3 models, you're going to see discrepancies in strung weight between the Wilson website and Tennis Warehouse. Now, why do you see discrepancies in strung weight? Because it's not an accurate measurement of a racket's weight. Why? Because every string is going to have a different weight. So I keep replying to comments that ask me, hey Nick, you talking about unstrung or strung? I'm always talking about unstrung weight in any of my racket videos. Guys, I'm so excited to start hitting with this racket. I can't wait. But I want to mention a couple more things that are cool about the RF line. First of all, the 3 models look exactly the same, and something that's new and different compared to the RF 97 is that the RF logo is on the butt cap, and there's also a fade in the color. So it's anthracite black on the bottom, and then it fades into silver. Federer claimed that this is going to look really cool when players hit their strokes, that you're going to see the swing path better. Whether that's true or not, let's test it out once we start seeing this racket in action. But to me personally, it's very important how a racket looks, and this is one of the most beautifully designed rackets that I've ever seen. It's very simple. I like the color, I like the shape of the beam, I like the feel of the racket. It's somewhat in between a glossy and a matte feel, and overall this racket looks absolutely spectacular. See, I could never play with an ugly racket or what I perceive to be ugly, because that's very subjective. But one thing I can tell you, I've hit like 3 or 4 balls with this racket, and it's absolutely spectacular. For you guys that don't know, I used to play with Wilson rackets, so I'm very familiar with the Wilson brand, and I do like how specific Wilson rackets feel. Not all of them, and I'm going to be testing more Wilson rackets in the next weeks, but this specific design of the frame suits me because it reminds me a little bit of my hyper hammer that I used for 15 years, and I can tell you that this racket feels absolutely phenomenal to me. It is very familiar. Just like Federer said, it has to feel good in the hand. Let me try hit a couple of backhands. So on the backhand, the racket is flailing a little bit more. I'm feeling a decrease in power more than on the forehand, and this particular model might be a little bit too light for me. Okay, here we have the RF01, that's the 300 gram version. Before I tell you my opinion on this one, I want to talk about demoing rackets and strings, because a lot of you guys have wrote comments in my first test video on what strings I used in my racket. So here's the thing, strings are extremely important when you are testing rackets. For example, if you play with poly and your demo racket has a multi in there, or a synthetic gut, or even natural gut, it's going to feel completely different, and your testing is going to be influenced heavily by the string. So when it comes to demo rackets, you want to use a string that you're familiar with, and also a tension that suits you. So all the demo rackets that I have a string in there that I'm very familiar with. But guys, as I'm talking and hitting with this thing, I can tell you that, like I said on that future model, there's a familiarity with this frame. It feels so good in my hand. It's almost as if I've been playing with this racket for a long time, even though this is the first time that I'm trying it. So I do like the racket a lot, and this 300 gram model does feel more stable at contact compared to the 280 gram one. It's time for some backhands. I can tell you the backhand already feels a lot better. So that higher weight is giving me more stability, and it doesn't feel like my backhand is flailing around all over the place. So one important difference between these two is the weight. But interestingly, it felt completely different hitting the ball with the 300 gram versus 280 gram. And while I felt more stability with this one, I also felt a little bit less acceleration and less effortless power, because it was more cumbersome for me to accelerate the racket. I felt like I got more pop with the 280. And there's an important difference in stiffness between the 300 gram and the 280 gram, which are 64 in stiffness, and the Pro version is 67 in stiffness. So not only is the Pro version heavier, it is also stiffer, and my hope is that it's not going to be too heavy for me, because I do like a stiffer racket. I do like that responsiveness when I hit the ball. I don't like the racket giving in too much. So it's going to be super interesting to see whether I can play with the 320 gram model, because Federer said that they designed the racket to be able to go through the air faster. So my hope is that I can handle the 320 grams, because that's a little bit heavier than what I'm used to. However, if you watch that wide racket reveal video, I have a lot of paint layers on my racket, and it's probably somewhere around 320, honestly, unstrung, my racket right now. So I can probably get away with a little bit higher weight, because I've got used to it over the last year and a half or so. And I can tell you that this racket is feeling pretty good. I like the power, actually. It's very lively, so I don't have to do that much, and the ball is exploding off the racket. So that extra stiffness, 67 versus 64 in stiffness, the Pro being the stiffest out of the three, this is a big difference for me. And so far, the Pro version is my favorite one. I'm getting the most amount of power for the least amount of effort, and that's exactly what I like on a racket. Here comes the backhand. The backhand is weird with me, because some rackets just don't feel good for whatever reason. It doesn't feel 100% perfect, but definitely better than the other two RF models. One thing that I will never understand with racket manufacturers is why they make the handles so short. Do you see how high my index finger is on my left hand on the grip, and I'm holding it all the way on the bottom? Why not make the handle up to here? That's what I like, where I have a little bit more space. Now this racket is not bad. There are some that are even shorter, and the index finger on the non-dominant hand is literally on the racket throat, and it feels so uncomfortable. So I don't like the length of the grip, but it is long enough for it to be comfortable, and I can always build up that last piece a little bit with an overgrip by layering 3 or 4 rounds of overgrip on the very top. And guys, of course, I need to play out some points, and that's going to be the next part of this test. Before I do that, I'm going to let a couple of rip with the Pro. Now let me just guide you through what I'm feeling. And so that wasn't too good. Let me try again. Let me try one more. So I increased my swing speed, and things fell apart pretty quickly. Was it the racket's fault, or was it the fact that I'm hitting horrible forehands? Most likely the latter, but in any case, now it's time to hit the court and play out some points to give these three models a final test. Let's start with the RF Future, the 280 gram version. I gotta say, that serve felt absolutely phenomenal. I don't know if there was just a good serve, regardless of the racket, but that felt really good. Okay, that's more of a footwork mistake. The forehand feels absolutely amazing with this racket. I don't know, off the ball machine this didn't feel too great, on my backhand especially, but here it feels amazing. Good. Dobar, Milane, bravo. Hard to get a feel for the return when you don't get your racket on it. Okay, that was important because I hit it way off center. I hit it very high on the string bed and I didn't lose that much power. Of course, an awful serve, but despite me missing that serve, it still felt good. I was still able to get a good response from the racket, even on that off-center hit. My forehand has not felt this good in a long time. I feel like I can take a huge cut at the ball without losing control. Okay, that was key. I hit two backhands. First one felt wobbly, second one I connected a little bit better. And then of course a horrible forehand. Not the racket's fault. I let that ball jam me a little bit. But the backhand didn't feel too bad. Dobar. You know, Milan just came back from Croatia and he's serving one ace after another. That happens sometimes when you visit Croatia. All right, there we go. Good return. I don't know what my problem was on the ball machine, but that backhand return felt absolutely amazing. Complete control and tremendous amount of response on that return. Again, serve, forehand, I really can't complain. Feels amazing. Oh la la, too good. Okay, even though I missed it by a little bit, again, out of position return, just really working with my left hand and able to get a tremendous amount of power. I like what's going on here. Okay, at this point I'm gonna chip. Let me see what the slice feels like. All right, at this point I'm gonna kick and chip. All right, that kick was ridiculously bad. Let me try one more, this time with a little bit more body involvement. And I'm gonna try to chip, maybe drop shot if I get a chance. All right, that felt a little bit better. I'm just now noticing the fade on this racket. It looks really cool. But in any case, this is the 300 gram model. This is the RF01. And let's see what's gonna happen with this one. Oh, that's too good, Milan. It's a shame that I didn't blast the backhand and decided to do a dropper because I had a really good look to be aggressive there. But those forehands felt pretty good. Again, what I'm feeling is the following. I can swing fast without losing control, because one of the problems sometimes is that I like to play with very powerful rackets, and that is not the case that I can swing like a madman, because a very powerful racket you have to be a little bit more careful or you'll start spraying. I feel with this I can swing fast without losing control, and that is not a bad thing. Getting a good amount of responsiveness when I don't put my body into it too, I will say that. So if I don't swing absolutely towards the max, I'm still getting a very good responsiveness. So this is a powerful racket, but also a racket that has a lot of control. Okay, service feeling pretty decent. Be honest with you, I'm not getting the same type of responsiveness as with the Future, the 280 gram one. Now, if you watch my first video where I tested the bolt rackets and the Technic fiber, I talked about the fact that sometimes my forehand gets lost here and I need a more headlight racket to be able to wrap the racket around and finish more. Oops! 9 points headlight should mean that it's quite maneuverable and might be maneuverable for other players, but for some reason I'm not getting this racket around when I'm trying to put more spin on my shots as I could with the 280 gram. Now this weight, 300 grams, shouldn't be that much, so it is a little bit confusing why I'm feeling that I'm not getting the racket around the body as easily as I should be. Oh my goodness, lost control on that forehand. Dai po 9 over 1. That was more of a pickup shot from the baseline, and I felt like I didn't control it that well. Again, not able to maneuver this particular racket that well when I have to. Like when I let my forehand rip, it feels good. But when I have to do more handsy shots, shots that require maneuverability, it doesn't feel too good. Definitely does not feel that great on my serve. This particular one, I'm losing a little bit of pace. Not feeling my forehand with this. All right, now it's time for the RF01 Pro. Oh, no. Off center and late. Again, was not able to maneuver this one at all. Oh my God, so bad. Less responsiveness compared to the other two, even though it's stiffer. I can already tell you that. It's the weight of the racket specific to me that makes this racket less responsive. So I think other players might actually find more responsiveness with this one, but because it's a little bit heavier, I feel like I'm not accelerating quite as fast, and therefore I get less pop. Oh, no. Yeah, that backhand is a little bit off center due to horrible footwork and low intensity, and I wasn't able to do much with that. Oh my God, again. 2 off center shots in a row, and the result, not too good. The cause of error was not the racket, it was the horrendous footwork, but still, I'm registering that off center shots. I don't feel too good with this one. That serve, even though I made it, again, not my normal power. I felt like out of all these, with the future, I was able to serve the fastest. Here, I feel a slight decrease in the amount of power I get on my serve. Absolutely horrendous touch. Now, Roger Federer was known for his touch, and these rackets are known to be rackets where you can utilize great hands, but that was absolutely horrendous. Not by the racket, by me. Some of those forehands didn't feel too bad though, so I find that if I get my body into the shots, it's good. But just out of the arm, that's where I'm missing a little bit of responsiveness with this one. And I think that's due to the weight. Yeah, I don't know if I can handle 320 grams unstrung and a swing weight of 331, I believe. It's a little bit too much for me. Like for example, there, I wanted to let the racket do the work for me. I didn't get enough on that ball at all. I needed to take a bigger swing. Very similar there. I caught it on the top of the frame and I got absolutely nothing. Well, I'm down 2-6 in a tie break. We're going up to 7. I'm going to try to fight hard and give it my best effort. All right, come on, Nick. Good backhand. Oh my goodness. An absolutely gorgeous racket. I think a lot of players will love it, but it's just not for me. It's too demanding. So I don't get enough out of the racket. Even though It's lighter than the RF97, even though it's got a slightly bigger racket head size. It still has a lot of the characteristics of the RF97, where unless you like that type of racket, you're gonna struggle with off-center shots. You're gonna have to hit the ball cleanly, and you're gonna have to swing a lot to get power. While it is a racket that's somewhat responsive for the right person, for me personally, since I'm used to super powerful rackets, it's unfortunately not responsive enough. I want to try the Future one more time, the 280, because I for sure like this one the best out of the three, but I want to give it one more shot to see if I'm still playing well with it, because sometimes, you know, it just could be that you're playing horrendous. It doesn't matter what racket you're playing with, so I want to make sure that I did indeed like this one the best. See, even that miss right there, it just feels more responsive. The way I can describe it is that despite the fact that it's not as stiff, I'm getting this racket through the air quicker because it's lighter, and I'm able to get more power. Oh, too good, Milan. But see, even that slice compared to the Pro, I was able to finish that slice a lot more, hit it a lot more zippy. The slices with the RF Pro, they just sat there. They had nothing on them because I just didn't hit them big enough. And I'm sure you guys can see how much more free power I get on the forehand. I'm able to also finish more and make a technically more sound shot. So that right there was a good feeling forehand. Same thing there. Forehand felt great, but even more importantly, that backhand return, that was somewhat of a defensive return. I had to stretch for it. I was still able to do something with the ball and get a decent amount of pop on it and depth. So much better. So forehand and serve feel awesome. The backhand still a little bit wobbly, so I probably need a little bit of lead tape right on top for my backhand to feel a little bit more sturdy. I just still feel just like I did on the ball machine that the racket is slightly flailing on my two-hander. And return of serve though, where I don't have to swing that much, feels really good on the backhand. Feeling of being able to take full cuts and having control is absolutely spectacular with this racket. Future. Milan, out of those 4 tie breaks that I played, which ones do you think I played the best in?
Last one, best.
Last one?
Was it the lightest racket, 280?
So the first one I played with the light one.
The light one?
And the last one I played with the light one.
I felt like you played both of those tiebreakers better than the other one.
Disclaimer, I'm not sponsored by Wilson. Nobody paid me to do this review, but I can tell you that the new Roger Federer racket is one of the most beautifully designed rackets that I've ever seen. The RF97 was beautiful. I think this one is even more beautiful. It is a racket that I would buy just to have, but unfortunately I cannot play with the Pro. I have to count it out. Surprisingly, I also cannot play with the 300-gram version. It just didn't feel comfortable for me. I wasn't getting enough pace on my shots, not enough easy power. However, I am very impressed with my forehand with the RF01 Future. Despite it being 280 and feeling a little bit wobbly on my backhand, that can be corrected with some lead tape. I am gonna give this racket a further consideration. Remember, as I said in my last video, I'm gonna select 4 to 6 rackets for a final test later on this year, where I'm gonna select my new racket, and this one is gonna be in the mix for sure.